Hi everyone. Today demo is a CRUD operation demo on Next.js application using the Azure Cosmos DB as a backend. Okay. So what is Azure Cosmos DB? Azure Cosmos DB is a fully managed NoSQL database. NoSQL says data will be stored as key value JSON document. Cosmos DB provides high availability, low latency. Low latency means low delay for any application. Cosmos DB is quick in response delivering, auto scaling, effective auto failure management, etc. Okay, so Cosmos DB give everything, most of the things auto means cloud itself maintains everything. Any existing application that work on different databases can be easily migrated to Azure Cosmos DB as it provides APIs for integrations like SQL Core API. Okay, if we are starting a new application and we want to use Azure Cosmos DB, then it is recommended to use the SQL Core API. Or else if you have already developed an application that has different backends, then you can choose like MongoDB API, Cassandra API, Germalin API, Table API based on your database, existing database. So in Azure, we have to create our Azure Cosmos DB account. So creating Azure Cosmos DB account flow look like this. Okay, we will have database accounts where we will register. So once we register with the Azure Cosmos DB account, we can create the database. So inside the database, we can contain the container. So this container uh, can be think like a table or a collection of graphs. So table means either it can be SQL when you are using API like SQL Core or this table API. Okay, collection means if you are using MongoDB API, then it will be like a collection container. Okay, so based on the API you are using, the container will be varied. Okay. So inside of the container, it contains stored procedures, triggers, and items. So here items are nothing but the it can be treated as collection of documents, collection of rows, collection of nodes, collection of edges. Okay, so all these are depends upon the container. Container depends upon the API we will choose. Okay, but ultimately everything will be stored as a key value pair, no SQL dictionary. All these table and collection and graph and nodes all are like a wrappers to pay to easily consume. Okay, so one of the key things we have to know about in the Azure Cosmos DB is partitioning. Okay, Azure Cosmos DB uses partitioning to scale individual containers in a database to meet the performance needs of our application. Okay, for performance needs, Azure Cosmos DB implements partitioning. Okay, while partitioning the items in a container, it's divided into logical partitions. Okay, items in the containers are nothing but the documents will be stored as a logic under the logical partition. So logical partitions formed based on the value of the partition key that associated with the each item in a container. So what that means our document should contain a partition key. Okay, partition key nothing but we can choose any one of the property from our document as a partition key. Okay, for suppose if my document is a address, okay, address will contain street, door number, and city, right? I will take city as a partition key. Then what will happen means it will stored as a logical partition. Okay, so all the people under New York City comes under one logical partition, and Texas people comes under another logical partition. Like that, logical partitions will be formed based on the partition key value. Okay, so all the items in the logical partition key have same partition key value, like New York or Texas, like that city name. Okay. For example, here I am using an example. The country property is made as a partition. Okay, in my document, I made country property as a partition. Then items with a country name like India are stored under one logical partition, and items with a country name like Italy stored under one logical partition, and so on. Okay. So it is always advisable to use most common and unchangeable property. Okay, the partition key value should not be changed. That kind of property should be chosen as a partition. Okay, and partition key to get and this partition key to get more performance and manage the price to spend on Cosmos consumption. So based on this partition key, how effectively we can use, we can get the benefits of like application performance as well as the price we have to spend on the Azure Cosmos DB. Okay. If item contains no proper property to use a partition key, then we can use the ID property. Okay. If you don't have any specific property to use as a partition key, then you can use ID property. We know that ID property will be unique, right? So if I have 100 documents, there it will form 100 logical partitions because every value is unique, right? So that's why. So by performance wise also, it won't give any problem if you use a unique property as a partition key, but it may cost some more because we have to search for every record because every partition key has its own unique value. There is no common value to fetch the data in a short way, right? So whenever you use ID property, that might cost costs us. Okay. So before going to creating our Next.js application, let's first create the Azure Cosmos DB account and database and container inside of it. Then we will create Next.js application and try to consume the items from the Cosmos DB. So go to portal.azure.com. Once you sign up, you are going to land upon the home page. Okay, here click on the create a resource button. Okay, from here you can choose creating the Azure Cosmos DB from here in the list, or else you can search as well. Okay, I am selecting the Azure Cosmos DB service. Now we have to choose the API. So it is recommended to use SQL when you are a beginner. So I am selecting the SQL core. But your application is already using some other kind of databases like MongoDB, Graph, or Cassandra. You can choose respect to APIs. So let's select core SQL API. Now here is the form for creating the Azure Cosmos DB account under the SQL API. So let's fill up the form and create the account. So here I am going to create a new resource group. Resource group is nothing but the folder. So whatever the uh, Azure Cosmos DB account we are going to create, that will be stored under this folder. Okay, resource group is like a folder. Let me give a new folder name. Okay, create it. And here we have to define the account name. So the based on this account name, a URL will be created under the as a subdomain of Azure Cosmos DB account. So this URL will be used in our applications. So it is always advisable to give the meaningful name to your account name so that URL will be available as a meaningful URL. Okay. So here I am giving my name hyphen Cosmos as my account name. Okay, you can leave all the options default and you can see apply free tier. If you are a beginner or a learner, you can enjoy the benefit of free tier discount. Okay, up to 100 RUs and 25 GB it will be free. So what is this RUs means request per unit per second. So based on this request per unit per second, the cost will be calculated on the Azure database. So this request to unit will calculate based on all the things like infrastructure, query, read query, and the memory usage, everything. Okay, and its cost also very minimum only. Okay, so that is about the RUs. And here you can see there are several tabs like global distribution, networking, backup policy, encryption, tags. If you want, you can go through one by one. But as a developer, for a quick start, I can directly click on review and create. And here I selected wrong subscription. Let me select my original subscription. Now I am clicking the review plus create button. So it will validate my form. So validation is successful. Let's create the Azure Cosmos DB account. And here you can see deployment is in progress. So let's wait for a couple of minutes. So our account is successfully created. Go to resource. So this is my Azure Cosmos DB account. Now to create database and to create container and to add items under it, go to Data Explorer. Now click on new container here. Okay, it will pop up a form. So here database ID, nothing but the database name. So I will name like my database name like vehicles. Okay, and here you can see it leave default settings like share access throughput and database throughput to auto scale and database max are used to 1000. Like that you can leave default them. And here is the container ID. So I will create my container like car container name. So it will be a table or a graph or a edge based on your API. Okay, I have chosen SQL API, right? So car will be my table. Okay, and here is the partition key. So here we have to specify the what kind of property you want to use as a partition key. Basically, my container contains items. Items are nothing but the document. So document will contain property like ID, make, model. So I want to use make as a my uh, partition key. So what make will contain means manufacturer name like Honda, Ford, Benz, like that car manufacture programs I am going to store in the make property. So I am selecting this partition key as a make. So all the Honda vehicles will be eh, formed as a one logical partition area, and all Ford vehicles will save under one logical partition like that. Okay, and you can leave remaining all those things as a default and click on OK. So you can see here under data, our vehicles database is created, and if you expand it, our cars container is successfully created. And select on items under the car. Okay, it will open a new editor. Here, click on the new, creating the new item, nothing but a one sample document. Okay, and let's add some sample uh, document, one item. Okay, ID and make. So make is my partition key. So Honda my manufacturer name, and let me add model. So I'm going to save the model like Accord. Okay, now let's insert this new document into our car container. For that, click on save button. And here see in the middle a table structure, our record is successfully added. Okay, so I close and click on items again. See here it is loading. If you click on this row, the content will be appeared on the right hand side. Okay, so like this we can store our documents into the Azure Cosmos DB. Now let's try to uh, create a Nest.js application and try to implement CRUD operation like create, read, update, delete operations using Cosmos DB as a backend. Okay. So the command to create the Nest.js application is nest space new space name of your project. Let's create the application. Project has been successfully created. Let's open it. So here is our Nest.js application. Now let's install two required packages for implementing the Azure Cosmos DB into our application. Okay. So the first package I have to install, that is npm install Azure Cosmos. Okay. Install the package. So the next package that we have to install, that is NestJS slash Azure database. Copy command, install it. After installing packages, just confirm they are successfully installed by checking them in package.json file. Okay. In the dependencies, you can see our libraries like Azure Cosmos and Azure database has been successfully installed. Okay. Now in SRC, in app module, first let's import the Azure Cosmos DB module. Okay. So in the imports, Azure Cosmos DB module. Okay. For route. Okay. For route will be method used by the uh, parent module. So app module will be our parent module, right? We will use for route. Okay. Here we have to configure some required settings of the Azure Cosmos DB. Okay, like DB name. So we know our DB name, that is vehicles. So please provide here the DB name. Okay. And next thing I want endpoint. Okay. And along with endpoint I want key. Okay. So to get the endpoint and key in the Azure portal, on left hand side, go to keys menu. Okay. So here you can get the endpoint, that is URL, and the key, that is primary key. So copy the endpoint and next copy the primary key and assign to key property. Okay. So we have successfully registered our Azure Cosmos DB module. Okay. Now let's create. So our container is, let's go to our data explorer and our database. So here I have car models, car container, right? So let's create a separate module like car module where we are going to implement all the logic that related to consuming the car container in the Azure Cosmos DB. Okay. So let's create a module. So to create a module, next is G for generate, and to create module, MO for module and name of your module. My module name is simply car. Okay, let's create it. Okay, and if you go to the file structure, you can see a car folder is created. Inside of it, car model is added. Okay, now to represent our container, we have to create a type here. Okay, class. So that is a car class. So let's create it. So the command to create a class is like nest space G for generate, CL for class. Okay, and I want to create that in inside of the car folder, and car dot entity is the name of my file and hyphen flat that represents no more additional uh, folders. Okay, and hyphen no spec, no testing files as well for this demo. Let's create it. And here you can see our car entity is created. And here if you see, it's named as car entity. Instead of using car entity, let's rename it as car. So this name should be exactly match with our container name. Okay. And here we are going to add properties that represents our uh, documents. So if you go to items, so instead of items, we have added one record, right? So this class will contain ID, make, model as the properties. Okay, so let's add them here. Okay, should be semicolon. And here we have to specify inside of this car which model is the partition key. We know we made make as a partition key, right? Here we have to define. For that we can use an attribute decorator that is like Cosmos partition key. Okay, that loads from NestJS / Azure database. So here I can specify the property name that is make. Okay. Now let's register the Azure Cosmos DB for future, means for child module inside of the car module. Okay. So here specify imports and here Azure Cosmos DB module for feature for child module. Okay, inside of for feature, let's open the array and in the array, let's assign the object. So here you can specify collection name. So this collection name exactly match with us with our container name. Okay, so that is car. And here we have DTO. So that represents the type of our collection. We have created our type, right? What is that? Is a car. So let's assign DTO to car. Okay. Now let's create a new controller inside of our car module. Okay, that is like a car controller. So let me create nest space G space CO that represents controller and name of your controller car hyphen no spec. Okay, let's create it. So it will automatically created under the car folder only. Okay, our controller has been created successfully. So let's go over there. Our car controller. Okay, now let's inject the container instance into our car controller. To do that, add constructor, and here we can use injectable model that load from Azure database as a token, and its type will be our car. Okay, and here let's define private car container, and its type will be container. Okay, that loads from Azure Cosmos. Okay, now let's create one DTO for returning the response. Okay, for that let's create nest space G space CL for class inside of car folder car dot DTO. Okay, hyphen flat, no more additional folders, hyphen no spec, no test files. Okay, let's create. Okay, it is successfully created. So car DTO So what I will do, I will change it as an interface and I will name it like iCarDTO. Here same properties of my car, that is like ID, my container only, but this is for DTO. Okay, model. Okay. Now inside of our controller, let's implement the read operation. Read operation means fetching all data from the Cosmos DB and returning as a response. For that, let's create a action method async. Okay, get cars, and it should be decorated with the HTTP GET because it should be invoked for GET request, right? And here I can specify my route like all cars. Okay, and now let's prepare some SQL query. Very simple SQL query. Select star from C. Means we are getting all the data from the container. Here C, you can add any character of your choice. Okay, any string as well. Okay, so there is no specific reason or no specific term to define here because anyway it is runs under container, car container only. So it's just a alias name, whatever we give here. Okay, so frame a SQL query, select star from C means get mm, all the items from the container. So this query will runs against our car container, right? So it will get all the items from the car container. So that is the meaning of this query. Okay. And next, where Cosmos results equal to await car container. Okay, this dot car container dot items. Okay, items dot query and in query of type car, and in this we have to pass our SQL query. I have already prepared, right? Pass it and then fetch all. Fetch all will get all the results. Okay. Now from this Cosmos, let's fetch our data. Where so this result, okay, Cosmos result will contain all these unnecessary properties like attachments, e tag, ts, all these Cosmos DB related IDs also it will return. So to filter that, we are going to map with our response model. Okay, so result equal to Cosmos results dot from resource. We have to read map icar dto type. Okay, and we're going to map id equal to value dot id, make equal to value dot make, model equal to value dot model. Okay, let's return this response. Okay, that's it. We are done with our read operation. Let's run our application and test it. So this is my URL like localhost 3000 slash car slash all. Let's run the endpoint. See, we got make Honda model accord. That is the item from the Azure Cosmos DB. Okay, so we have successfully done our read operation. Now let's implement create operation for creating the new document into our Azure Cosmos DB container. Okay, for that let's create one more method. Okay, or one more endpoint. Sync create. Okay, and it should be decorated with @post, and here define our route like create, and we have to read the payload. To read the payload, we have to define body and payload and iCar DTO. Okay, that is the payload type. And first we have to map our car DTO is our car entity, car. Okay, so let's map it where new car equal to new car and new car dot ID we have I will directly assign to. So there is no default auto increment unique value that can be generated at the Azure Cosmos DB. We have to generate a random string. Okay, for that you can use any external libraries to generate a random unique string. For this demo, I simply assigning value 2. Okay, car dot make. I will create other make like Ford new car dot model and model will be EcoSport. So this new item I want to save. Okay, for that what I can do, where resource equal to await this dot container dot items dot create. So to this create method you can directly pass the model. Okay, I have passed it and it is not resource, it will resource as a one of its property. And now let's simply return the properties from the resource id resource dot id make resource dot make and let's define model resource dot model. Sorry, my mistake. These should be passed from my payload. I have directly assigning. Sorry for that. Only ID will be we have to assign manually because we are not generating unique, right? Okay. Now let's run and test it. So here I'm going to use the Postman tool for creating my new document. So provide your endpoint like create endpoint. Okay. And here is my payload make Ford and model EcoSport. Okay. So let's save it. I got successful data ID Ford make. Okay. That means it should be saved into Azure document. So let's go to Azure and click on this reload. And here you can see one second row is appearing. Click on it. And here you can see our data to EcoSport, EcoSport model and Ford. That means we have successfully added a new item into our container. And our next operation is updating the record. Okay. So for update, let's create almost I can use same method. So copy it and update. It should use put, right? And let's change the route and method name like update. Okay. And payload iCar DTO will be same. And here ID we have to send it from the payload property, right? So I can directly assign. Only known document will be edited, right? So ID also we have to pass from the user endpoint and make model. And here you can use instead of create, you can use upset. Okay, so that going to update the car instead of new car. I will change the name like car to update. Okay, so car to update. Okay, so this is our update method. Now let's run it and test. So click on Honda first record. Now I want to update this model. Okay, this record to some payload, Honda payload. Okay, for that, let's go to our Postman and change the route like update. Okay, and here in the payload, change the I want to update Honda vehicle, right? Honda, and new model name is pilot. And here we have to pass ID as well because we are updating. So ID is 1. And also change this post to put and click on update. Okay, we are getting 200 status. Also we got response. That means we have successfully updated. To check that, go to Azure portal. Okay, and click again on this record. So it will be refreshed, this document. So click on Honda. See, now model is showing pilot. That means we have successfully updated. Okay, so now let's implement our last operation, that is delete operation. So for that, let's create a method async remove. Okay, and for deleting we need two values, that is ID, which is a unique value, and also the partition key value. Partition key value means nothing but the make value. Okay, so to this method we will use query parameters id string and another value, that is partition key value. Partition key, any name, any query parameter name you can give. Okay, string. Okay, and it should be decorated with the delete attribute. Okay, and configure the route like remove, and here I can do await this dot container dot item of id comma partition key. Okay, dot delete. It's going to remove the record, and I simply return deleted message. Okay, so that's my delete endpoint. So let's run and test it. Okay, change the endpoint, remove, and it has query parameters like ID, and I want to delete Honda record only. Its value is 1. And what is another value? Partition key, right? Let's copy from here query parameter value and equal to Honda. And it should be changed to delete. Now click on send button. I got deleted. That means item has been successfully deleted. If you go to Azure portal and reload here, you can see only single document because Honda is deleted. See, no Honda record. That means we have successfully deleted our item from the container. Okay, so that's all about the uh, CRUD operation in Nest.js using Azure Cosmos DB. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. So if you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.